Hey everybody, I'm Scott Henson, pastor of Dallas Baptist Church. I want to share a little devotional from Acts chapter 17. In Acts chapter 17, we find that Paul arrives at Thessalonica. He had been at Philippi and got run out of town, had a little incident in the jail, and God works some miracles, but he was essentially run out of town, asked not to come back. Well, he comes to Thessalonica, and he goes first to the synagogue, and as his custom, he goes on the Sabbath, and he went for 3 Sabbaths, and he reasoned from the Scriptures. He studied the Scriptures with people and discussed the Scriptures with them, the Jewish people there. And he demonstrated that Christ had to suffer and die and rise again. And he said that Paul says, quote, the Acts says, but Paul said, quote, "This Jesus whom I preach to you is the Christ." He told them the truth. And some were persuaded. It says a great multitude of devout Greeks, great multitude, and not a few of the leading women joined Paul and Silas. So that language, not a few, it means there's a good bit of the women, the leading women of the town, who joined Paul. But notice, kind of like Paul's modus operandi, he goes to the synagogue, he goes to preach to those who have a faith in God already, or at least a belief in God, tells them the truth about Christ. And he also let some of the devout Jews, these God-fearers, as the terminology calls them, those who had converted in some ways to Judaism, followed God. And of course, like Lydia in Philippi, some of the leading women join. Verse 5 tells us that there are some issues. This is the New King James. "But the Jews who were not persuaded, becoming envious, took some of the evil men of the marketplace, and gathering a mob, set all the city in an uproar, and attacked the house of Jason, and sought to bring them out to the people. When they did not find them, they dragged Jason and some brethren to the rulers of the city, crying out, 'These who have turned the world upside down have come here too.' And Jason harbored them, and these are all acting contrary to the decrees of Caesar, saying that there's another king, Jesus." End quote. "And they troubled the crowd and the rulers of the city when they heard these things. So when they had taken security from Jason and the rest, they let them go." Now, I want to look at that phrase in verse 6. It says that those who have turned the world upside down. My wife is a big fan of musicals. She's got my kids into it, and Disney Plus hadn't helped with the airing of the musical Hamilton. In fact, my oldest kid was go around the house singing songs from Hamilton. And they're catchy. It's catchy rap tunes, really. But there's a song in Hamilton called Yorktown. And there's a line in that song that goes, "Till the world turns upside down." Really catchy. But in the bit of the play about Hamilton, this line is sung as Alexander Hamilton, is stressing over the Battle of Yorktown, stressing about what the nation may become, stressing about his beloved Eliza. His world is being turned upside down. Have you ever had anything that turned your world upside down? There's several things in my life that have turned my world upside down. When I was 8 years old, my brother passed away. I turned my world upside down. Getting married turned my world upside down. I'd never lived with anybody else before, really, other than college roommate, a guy. In fact, my brother and sister had moved out by the time I was old enough to remember, and so I never really had a roommate. Let alone a female roommate. Had to share a bathroom with. Turned my world upside down. Becoming a father turned my world upside down. Getting up early in the morning and those feedings, and in the middle of the night, sacrificing so much for my children, it's turned my world upside down. But most importantly, becoming a Christian has turned my world upside down. My goals, my emphases, my drive has changed because of God. What has turned your world upside down? In Paul's time, it was really unusual, the teachings that Paul was giving to these Gentiles, these Greeks, these Romans, that there's somebody besides Caesar who was king. Notice the accusation in verse 7 is that they're saying there's another king besides Caesar, and that's Jesus. You see, the Romans had been so brainwashed, if you will, they didn't know any better because of their culture, that they thought that Caesar gave them everything, that Caesar was kind of the in-between between them and the gods, and because of Caesar's bountiful blessing, because of his peace, because of his rule, that Caesar at the time had given them this and that. But really, it's God behind all of it. And to hear that truth that God is behind it changed and turned people's worlds upside down. The Caesar wasn't the Savior that they needed. It was Jesus Christ. And that the emphasis on the material world, the salvation of the material world, that's not what's important. It's Jesus Christ and His salvation He gives, the eternal salvation. Has your world been turned upside down by Jesus Christ? I pray that it has. I pray that you've met Him, that you know His hope, you know His love, you know the truth, that you don't have to be a slave to sin, to our vices, to our desires. You can have meaning and purpose and direction in your life. I pray that if your world hasn't been turned upside down by Jesus, it soon will. May God bless you and keep you.